Plastic surgery gone way too far. Joe Megler is a 22-year-old from Germany. As he was shaving one day, he accidentally nicked his cheek. A trail of blood started rolling down, but instead of getting scared, he was inspired. You see, Joe was a huge fan of Batman and absolutely loved the Joker. So instead of putting a band-aid on the cut, he made it bigger. Little by little, he stretched it even bigger until eventually there was a hole in his cheek. Today, Joe does everyday things like brushing his teeth through the hole and even eats food through it. Subscribe if you think this is gross.
She took her neighbor's life because he didn't like his Christmas gifts. Melissa Young was born in Perth, Australia in the late 1970s, and when she was a teenager, she would get bullied often for her cross-dressing, and this would lead her to drinking heavily. At the age of 26, Melissa transitioned in 2002, embracing her new identity. About a year later, she started working at a brothel in Edinburgh, Scotland. While working, she had a pattern of stealing not just from her clients, but her coworkers as well. Eventually, Melissa got fired and she was sentenced to 18 months in prison for shoplifting. During this time, she was dealing a lot with her addiction and she was just not doing well. On December 25th of 2013, Melissa made a call to emergency services claiming that her neighbor, Alan Williamson, was refusing to leave her home. Later that evening, she made a second call to emergency services and she admitted to stabbing Alan in her home. When police arrived to Melissa's home, they found her hands covered in blood, and right behind the front door was Alan's lifeless body. In the kitchen, police had discovered the weapon that Melissa had used, and Alan had suffered from 29 injuries. The following day, Melissa was examined by a doctor, and she told that doctor that she was possessed, that she was hearing voices, she saw a bright light, she flipped and attacked Alan. She also stated that she was disgusted with her other neighbors and wanted to unalive all of them, and then she covered her mouth and said, "Oops, did I say too much?" Melissa then started to shift the blame onto Alan, stating that she had gave him a Christmas present of some shoes and a calendar, and by his reaction she could tell that he did not like them, and she claimed that if he would have just accepted the gifts, she would have never done this to him. In August of 2014, Melissa was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. She must serve at least 20 years in prison before she can apply for parole.
4 disturbing facts about your body. If your body's immune system finds out about your eyes, it will blind you. Yes, that is correct. Your eyes and your body have separate immune systems, and if for some reason your body's immune system discovers your eyes, it will attack them, sending you blind. You can get a condition called fatal familial insomnia. This is a condition where you cannot sleep for days, and you begin to lose your mind bit by bit until you die. Your body is always fighting cancer. In your lifetime, your immune system destroys anywhere from 5 to 8 cancerous cells that do not self-destruct. Some cancers fool your immune system so they can grow and spread. If you have even a small brain trauma, your brain can reset, changing your likes, dislikes, and other aspects of your personality.
Scariest videos on the internet, part 4. This is a famous statue that is said to be haunted. And someone caught its eyes moving on camera. What in the night of the museum is this?
Scary facts you wish you never knew.
There is a shack called the Devil's Toy Box in Louisiana, and for some reason people who go in lose their mind. Do you know the tingly feeling you get when you eat a pineapple? Well, that's because the pineapple is eating you. It has an enzyme called bromelain, and that enzyme eats meat, which you're made of. Now you can check if your phone activity is being monitored. Just click on share, slide all the way to the end. Click more. And if any apps appear before your contacts, you should delete it immediately. Sharks have been around for 420 million years, meaning they have survived all 4 big mass extinctions, making them older than dinosaurs, Mount Everest, and even some trees on this planet. The person who invented homework came up with the idea as a punishment for students.
You are a slave. Let me explain why. We are being controlled in this world. Everything we do, every move we make is remotely controlled by these people. Every human is born with the pineal gland. The pineal gland is known as the third eye or the sixth sense. It enhances your spiritual senses. It makes you analyze information faster. It makes you take the right decisions. It makes you sleep better, and much more. These people don't want your pineal gland to be activated because you become smarter and stronger. They deactivate your pineal gland using fluoride. They add fluoride in everyday necessities we consume. Drinking water has fluoride, and it's been proven that fluoride is cancerous. What is the first thing you do in the morning? Brush your teeth. Toothpaste contains fluoride. We are constantly shutting down this gland. Without this gland, we are more prone to weakness, staying up late, depression, and anger. Good news though, fluoride-free products exist.
This is how people react when they are told how long they will be in prison. Jacob Matthew Morgan, sentenced to 137 years in prison. Smith Riley, sentenced to life in prison without parole. Cameron Herring, sentenced to 24 years in prison. They starved their 10-month-old baby. Sentenced to life in prison without parole. Dylan Shoemaker, sentenced to 985 years in prison. Nico Jenkins, sentenced to death.
This teacher was caught doing it with an 8th grade student. And apparently it was almost daily. The kid was 13 years old and now she will serve 10 years in prison. This happened in Texas. The teacher behind me, her name is Alexandria Vera. She's 25 years old and this 13-year-old got her pregnant. She stated the relationship happened in the Instagram DMs and his family apparently approved of this relationship. The judge and the school district said that they want their teachers to teach students, not put their hands all over their students. She was originally going to get 30 years in prison, but the judge said, I don't think she's that bad, and gave her 10 years. Apparently this relationship blossomed in 2015 around summertime. The boy kept advancing, she kept denying, but eventually she gave in apparently. Prosecutors said based on evidence, they did it daily for 9 months straight. And apparently during the entire ordeal, to get away with this, she told her neighbors that the boy was her brother. And now it gets even weirder. She even moved his father in with her so she could pretend she was dating the father when in reality she was with the kid. This was kind of a mask. She was also paying for the family's groceries and phone bill. This kid literally had a sugar mama. Now Alexandria Vera has a 6-year-old daughter that even called the 13-year-old kid her dad. What an interesting case. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you're from Houston, Texas, did you hear about this case around you guys? As always, these videos are for informational purposes only. Once again, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I definitely feel like she should have served life for this. She knew exactly what she was doing, but the court system was pretty lenient on her.
Dark things Disney doesn't want you to know, part 15. So in part 14 of this series, I talked about the deadly monorail crash that killed a 21-year-old worker at Disney. This isn't the first time that this ride has taken someone's life. The first death occurred in 1966 during the park's annual grad night. Pictured here is 19-year-old Thomas Guy Cleveland. He attempted to sneak into the park on that night. He successfully managed to climb over the park's 16-foot high fence, and then he got onto the monorail tracks. But while on the track, the monorail train struck and killed him. It dragged his body 30 to 40 feet before stopping. More on this case in my next YouTube video. Subscribe so you don't miss out. Link in bio.
Imagine being told that you have to come up with $9 billion or face execution. Well, that is exactly what this woman is being told by a Vietnamese court right now. You see, earlier this year, Trong My Lan, who is a real estate tycoon and businesswoman, made global headlines after she was sentenced to death for committing one of the biggest frauds in global history. $44 billion. That's equivalent to roughly 9% of Vietnam's entire economy this year. Now of the 44 total, she is accused of embezzling $12 billion, and the court ruled this week that if she can pay back 3/4, her death sentence will be reduced to life in prison. So the question now is, can she come up with $9 billion to literally save her life?
Verdict of the jury is count one. We, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. Count two. We, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of attempted murder as charged in the indictment. Count three. We, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of tampering with evidence as charged in the indictment. Please be seated, Mr. Gregg.
Would you pay $6 million for a banana? Well, someone did, and this jaw-dropping sale made people scratch their heads. I think we can all agree that we can call it the golden banana. That's right, a golden banana, because this rare fruit was auctioned off at Sotheby's in New York. But before you start Googling the nearest banana farm, let me clarify. This isn't your average potassium-packed snack. It was a piece of art. And guess what? The buyer was someone with deep pockets and a love for eccentric art. To the point that they don't mind spending this huge amount of money for a literal fruit. So, what do you get after spending this much money? Well, a banana with duct tape. Despite this, the price skyrocketed to a mind-blowing $6.2 million, and people on the internet lost it. And who was the lucky buyer? A savvy Chinese man who wasn't about to let anyone snatch away his golden prize. In the end, some say it's a statement. Others just want to know if the banana comes with a side of luxury dip. Sadly, no one knows.
Let's take a look at the three biggest differences between Eastern and Western dragons. First up, appearance. The Western dragon has 4 legs, wings, and armor-like scales, whereas the Eastern dragon, while still capable of flight, has no wings and often no limbs at all. They're also much larger, growing up to 100 feet or more. Number 2, abilities. Western dragons can breathe fire, fly, and are more intelligent than any mere mortal. But they're no match for the Eastern dragon, which possesses godlike powers such as the ability to grant wishes and control over the elements. And finally, perception. Western dragons are viewed as wild animals decimating noble knights and kingdoms, whereas Eastern dragons are viewed as deities equally deserving of our respect and fear. If you want to learn more about these creatures and even lead them into the field of battle, you should download Call of Dragons. It's a strategy game filled with cryptids you can capture, and the storyline, much like these dragons, is legendary. Comment which dragon is your favorite and download COD.
Clips you need to see before you die. Part 6. Octopus unscrewing the lid of a vase from the inside. This is how a clam digs into sand. Vegetables in Alaska can reach gigantic sizes due to the 20 hours of sunlight they receive every day. This is how much a pumpkin has grown in 2 months.
Terrifier 3 is officially returning back to theaters on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. We're also said to be getting an extended version, but the extended version is not what you think. With director Damien Leone saying a lot of fans want to see uncut versions of things that were quote-unquote missing from the movie. Scenes like Sienna retrieving the sword from the Terrifier. They also want to see Jonathan's unaliving. And more scenes of Art the Clown at the Beta Bash, where he used the chainsaw, you know what I'm talking about? With him flat out saying, we didn't shoot those scenes. And there's nothing that would have been extended about him. And that brings me to believe that we will never see Jonathan's unaliving ever in a Terrifier movie. It wasn't shot, it wasn't something that happened unless, at the beginning of Terrifier 4, we see what actually happened to Jonathan. But I highly doubt that, because if they didn't shoot it during Terrifier 3, why would they shoot it for Terrifier 4? It also goes on to say that a lot of stuff that was quote-unquote missing are the really nice human moments between Sienna and her family. And a lot of great scenes that have to do with Gabby and Sienna's relationship, and how their bond is so strong. Which kind of makes sense, because we really didn't see much of their relationship on screen. We knew that Gabby loved Sienna. We didn't know the extent of their actual relationship. And for me, honestly, I would love to see those scenes. It would make the ending of the movie feel so much more real. Seeing how Sienna acted with losing absolutely everybody. Especially Gabby, if their relationship is as strong as Damien Leone is saying.
the moment Amanda
So this cop says that he was actually abducted by aliens. One night in Argentina, a police officer named Sergio Pucheta requested for backup from his base over the radio. According to the other police officers, he sounded terrified, but before the transmission cut out, he managed to say that there was something strange in the area and that he was going to investigate. When the other police officers got there, though, he was nowhere to be found. But the strange thing is that his motorcycle was there on the side of the road, along with his service handgun, his radio, and his cell phone. They looked everywhere for him, and then they ended up finding some footprints. So they followed these footprints into this wooded area, and they noticed that the footprints started to grow farther and farther apart from each other. And then all of a sudden, they disappeared. The police officers were baffled, and a search team was called to look for the missing cop. They ended up finding him the next day, 12 miles away from the area of his initial disappearance. He was found by a local farmer on the side of the road, and he was completely traumatized. He was curled up in the fetal position. They took him to the hospital, and when he eventually calmed down, he told the other officers a terrifying account of what had happened to him. He said that when he got to the area that he went to investigate, he bumped into two strange humanoid beings with glowing red eyes. He said that one of these beings spoke to him telepathically and ordered him to disarm his weapon and disable his radio and cell phone. This is when Pucheta said that he got scared and he decided to make a run for it. He said that he ran as fast as he could, but as he started to run, he started to feel like he was floating. And that's all he remembered before finding himself on the side of the road. Even more terrifying is that after this whole event, Pucheta decided to do hypnotherapy. And after the hypnotherapy, he said that he remembered that he was indeed abducted by these beings. He says that he remembers being beamed up to an alien spaceship and that the walls were luminous and bright. And then he says that he remembers being placed on a table or bed. Unfortunately, for police officer Sergio Pucheta, he was let go after this whole incident.
She was upset that she missed her hair appointment, so she took her father's life because of it. On the morning of October 1st, 2021, 18-year-old Megan Amirowicz was busy preparing for her 18th birthday, which was going to take place at a hotel later that night. Since it was her 18th birthday, it was kind of a big deal for her, and she wanted to look her best, so she scheduled an appointment at a salon to get her hair done. As usual, her father, Conrad, was her chauffeur, and he was supposed to be taking her to the salon. Unfortunately for both of them, Conrad was a heavy drinker, and he had been drinking that early morning, so once he laid down on the couch, he ended up falling asleep. Megan tried her hardest to wake her father up, and then she realized that she was probably going to miss her appointment, and this made her blood boil. Instead of her calling an Uber to go to her destination, she decided to do something way different. Megan had grabbed a container of drain cleaner and poured it all over her father's body from head to toe. After that, then she doused him with water. Because of this combination, it caused a chemical reaction which burned away his skin. A short while later, one of Megan's friends arrived at the home. They took one look at Conrad and immediately called 911 in Oakland County, Michigan. Conrad was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. He told the medical staff that his daughter was responsible for this whole thing, but later he told investigators that he had no memory of what had happened. As Conrad was fighting for his life in the ICU, the detectives were busy gathering evidence. Once they had spoke with family members, Megan was arrested and charged. Not long after, Megan was released after posting bail. Although Conrad had survived the initial attack, he had to have both of his legs amputated, his kidneys shut down, and he had damage to his lungs. On March 6, 2022, after 3 days of being removed from life support, Conrad had passed away from his injuries. The whole time that Conrad was in the hospital, they would not let Megan go see her father for his safety, and she was very upset by it. About a week later, on March 11th, Megan's bail was rescinded and the charges against her were upgraded to murder. She was immediately taken into custody and she had to stay there until her trial in June of 2023. Although Conrad wasn't the biological father of Megan, he loved her so much. She was the apple of his eye, and while he was laying in his deathbed, he still tried to protect her when the law came calling for her. But with all the evidence that investigators had, it pointed to Megan as the one who burned her father alive. On July 25th, 2023, Megan was found guilty of murder. The judge on the case believed that because of Megan's age, she didn't realize what she had done, so she only sentenced her a 1-year sentence. While on parole, she would have to undergo a mental health assessment every 6 months. Megan would also be fitted for a GPS tracking device, have a strict curfew of 9 p.m., and this probation period would end in July 2028. If you made it towards the end of this video, thank you guys so much for watching, and let me know down below if you agree with this sentencing, and if you have any requests for me, let me know down below as well.